Ladies and gentlemen, this is Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death, the left's effort to deny religious liberty, healthcare choices, and other life's decisions. Please welcome, from the great state of Texas, Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne. Former NFL player for the Dallas Cowboys, Chad Hennings. From DCP Action, Dr. Lee Gross. And your host, Emmy Award-winning journalist, Caroline Thau.
Hello. Obamacare made a lot of lofty promises. I think we all remember. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. If you love your health insurance policy, you can keep it. Not a problem. We were promised better health care at more affordable prices and access for all Americans. Well, how's that working for us? America's free markets were really driven down by another big government program. And for many of us, it looks and feels like socialized medicine. No matter how well-intentioned it might have been, it has failed the average American. And with the recent Supreme Court ruling a few weeks ago, pretty much holding up the essence of what Obamacare is, now Democrat leader Schumer is doubling down, saying he's going to make it bigger than ever. So we all have to ask, what kind of America do we want to live in? What kind of America do you want to live in? It is up to us. And the good news is that individual liberty and freedom and innovation is alive and well. Sometimes you have to go looking for it, and you have to reach deep down inside and help it to happen. Joining us today, some of the best and brightest in healthcare and government, we have Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne. It's rumored from Texas, rumored to be Nancy Pelosi's most bitter loss, which we love that. Then we have Dallas's own Chad Hennings, 3-time Super Bowl champ, Air Force Academy, the works. And yet somehow the American healthcare system failed him and his family, and he found a better way. So you're going to hear about that. Then we have Dr. Lee Gross, who was seeing patients and got so fed up, he decided to reject the whole system, and he fixed it himself. So we're going to hear from all of them. Congresswoman Van Duyne, I'm going to start with you. You were mayor of Irving, Texas, when Obamacare was first implemented. So you were really boots on the ground. What did you hear? What did you see? What changes?
Well, I mean, what we saw was increased cost. The first year that Obamacare was implemented at the city, we had to raise the deductibles of our police, our fire, to ridiculous amounts that they never had to pay before. But we also saw it cost the city between $600,000 and $700,000 to implement it the first year. What we saw was increased cost, decreased access, and decreased quality. And I think we're trying to find the exact opposite of that right now, right?
Right.
And we do have solutions for that.
Okay, and Dr. Gross, I'm gonna go to you next. You were embedded in seeing patients, and you had pretty much an epiphany. You just said, turning point, I'm done. Tell us about that moment and what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. So the name of my medical practice is Epiphany Healthcare. And in fact, we had an epiphany. We had a local business that would come up to us and say, Doctor, my health insurance premiums are skyrocketing. All my employees are seeing you as their doctor. I see what I'm paying them. I see what the insurance company pays you. Why am I paying so much money for you to provide care and they're keeping everything? So the epiphany was, why are we inserting so many middlemen between the doctor and the patient? Why are we creating so much burdensome obstacles and barriers to care? And so our epiphany was, we're going to walk away from it. We opted out of Medicare. We canceled our commercial insurance contracts. And we said, we're just going to sign a contract directly with our patients and work directly. We very quickly learned that health coverage is not health care.
Innovation. Chad, you are, well, first of all, we've got to say he has a shiner. And he was not in a bar fight last night. You want to,
I just found out actually I'm allergic to yard work, so I need to get a note from my physician right here that allows me to tell my wife that I don't have to do yard work anymore, but it's a chemical allergy.
Yeah, okay, so that's all it is. But Chad, you are pretty much the American archetype. I mean, you are what we all would love to be. Super Bowl champ, Air Force Academy, you're a successful entrepreneur, and yet your family succumbed to the healthcare system, and you found something else. Tell us what happened.
My healthcare experience with our family and our insurance experience predated Obamacare. When I was playing for the Cowboys, my son Chase acquired an autoimmune illness, which caused us to seek physician and medical care outside of our typical network. But having the insurance plan that I had with the NFL with the Cowboys, it wasn't just a Cadillac plan, it was a Lamborghini plan. Phenomenal insurance that we had. But then, when I retired from the Cowboys, we still had a network of physicians and doctors that we needed to see, so I had to find an economic alternative in insurance, traditional insurance, that served us, which was fine, we did. But my wife and I learned several lessons going through that experience. One, insurance, like medical care, is personal. There's not a one-size-fits-all solution, and that we as individuals have to take personal responsibility for our healthcare, diet, exercise, eating the right foods, to be able to do that.
Skin in the game, yeah.
So with that, then Obamacare comes along, and as a small business owner, our premiums soon skyrocketed. Our deductibles sometimes went 2-3x of what they once were. And my wife and I were looking at that experience, or going through that saying, you know, we're paying thousands of dollars a year to have the right to have insurance, and we'll never be able to capitalize on any of that because of the deductible expense. So with that, we looked for alternatives to traditional insurance, and we researched with the Christian Health Share networks, and we became members of Liberty Health Share. And with that, it was a phenomenal experience because it fit with our philosophy on life. One, as Christians, we are called to serve and to help one another in a community, be a part of the body of Christ. Secondary to that, it also fit within our mindset, our philosophy of personal responsibility and accountability for our own healthcare needs. And then when we do need help, we have others that would then step in to help us if needed. So from an economic standpoint and from a philosophical standpoint, I mean, those are great alternatives.
How long have you been doing this?
We've been doing this for 4 years.
And that's great news. Congresswoman Van Duyne, I'm going to ask you, you are actually now, the ball is a little bit in your court because Devin Nunes just appointed you to be part of the Republican version of the health care reform that you guys are working on. I know that's not the exact title, and you can clear us up on that. But tell us what you plan to do. What can you do as part of the minority right now? What can we do?
Well, there's lots of what Republicans are trying to do in the House is that when we take the House back in 2022, we want to make sure that we have a plan moving forward. You know, we're not just saying no, no, no. We want to make sure that we are empowering families, that we are giving people opportunities, and that we're giving people choices. We're identifying them as individuals, understanding that people have different needs, different budgets, different priorities, and instead of just looking at the one-size-fits-all federal government program, which is costly, lower access, and lower quality, we're saying we need to come up with solutions that empower people and give them more able to do what they need to do within their budget.
Do you feel like you're going to have things that Republicans can actually run on in 2022?
Absolutely. I mean, we're going to have solutions, which is what we're focused on right now. But you had asked the question, what can everybody in this audience do? Obviously, you need to vote, but it's more than just voting and getting involved in presidential elections. You need to get involved in your local elections. What we saw in when the person who ran against me on the Democrat side, she had come in and she got elected on the school board. And that all of a sudden she quit halfway in her first term, but it gave her a platform. So what you're seeing with critical race theory at school boards, what you're seeing happening at cities planning and zoning, what you saw at our county level in Dallas this last year, it is crucial, vital that not only do you get involved and vote, but you run and you support candidates that know that we have the same philosophies and principles.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, Beth, that's awesome. I always like to use sports metaphors. So ladies and gentlemen, my message to you is it's time to get off the bench and get into the game. We can no longer be apathetic to think that we have individuals that are willing to step in harm's way to be public servants. It's up to each and every one of us. So my challenge to you is, what can you do? And it's not a solo. Lock arms. Look at everybody in this room. Lock arms, and you're part of the conservative movement. Get off the bench and get into the game.
There are so many things that they've said that really we can build on. You know, as you mentioned, we're trying to increase quality, increasing choice, and decreasing cost. The government can only do one of those things at the most. Maybe if they're really trying, they can do two, but the only way you can get all three of those done is with a fair market competition in capitalism. If you try a one-size-fits-all approach, that just will never work. A top-down approach will never work. And every time you try a top-down approach, every time the government has a solution to something, it creates more bureaucracy for the system. So when they put fixes in, what happens is you burn out your physicians. You know, physicians are hardworking people by nature. We're not dropping out of medicine and committing suicide in record numbers because we don't like to work hard. We want our work to be meaningful, and the bureaucratic nightmare that's being created around the practice of medicine is absolutely unsustainable. So for us to step away from it, now what we are able to do is we're able to increase choices. When you pass Obamacare and you create this one-size-fits-all approach, you drive consolidation of physicians into these large hospitals and corporations, you increase the cost and you decrease the choice, which is the exact opposite of everything that we're trying to accomplish. So the best way that we've done is we work the doctors directly with the patients. We limit the middlemen. Anytime somebody gets in the middle of that relationship, they need to get paid and they make decisions, and they just don't need to be involved in that. And we went and put price tags, so we want people to be responsible consumers. So we have somebody that's in a health share, and we say, well, we want you to be a good steward of your healthcare dollars and shop around for your MRI. We're expecting them to shop in stores that have no prices on them. How is that possible? So what we've done in our practice, so we went around and we put price tags on everything. An MRI through our practice is $220. A CAT scan is $175. A chest x-ray is $25. Blood work is $45. You need surgery? We've negotiated cash bundled prices, inpatient and outpatient in surgical facilities, and we make the predictable care affordable for absolutely everybody. Let's let insurance be insurance. That's what they're good at. They're horrible at the day-to-day management of healthcare.
Very good. I'm going to ask you real quick, what are you hearing from your patients who've come off of perhaps the government plans or one of the other big insurance plans? What do you hear?
Yeah, so when you give somebody a health insurance card, you think, oh, they have coverage, therefore they have access. But what they don't have access, if you give somebody a card with an $8,000 deductible, they're uninsured for all intents and purposes. They have nothing. And so what I found is that our patients, they found that they were just frustrated and out of choices. They had this card, but they couldn't use it anywhere, and so they found that it was more expensive to have the insurance. It became a barrier to care, and so they dropped it and sought out other options, like health sharing ministries, like direct primary care practices.
And okay, Chad, I'm going to quote something from a book that How Government Works. It's a terrific book, came out in 2020, and Chad, you contributed a chapter, and in it you say, our philosophy is rooted in a belief that individuals, families, and communities do best when left alone to exercise their God-given freedoms and to provide for themselves and for one another. And that is pretty much the conservative mantra. It really is. In what you ended up choosing, health sharing, I know that there is a belief, and everyone has to commit, that they're going to take care of each other. They're going to take care of themselves physically. They're going to eat right, do their best to stay healthy, and they're held accountable to do that. So there's truly skin in the game. How does that feel? I mean, to be part of a community where at least you know everyone's trying.
You know, it's common sense, it's natural law, you know, where the individual rights and freedoms are guaranteed to the individual, and the purpose of government is to protect and preserve those individual rights. That's what distinguishes us from every other liberal democracy out there. We acquiesce certain rights to the government to give them to protect and preserve, whereas Western liberal democracies, it's the government that dictates the individual rights. So for us, we can make our own decisions for ourselves, for our families. It's not a government's one-size-fits-all solution. We need personal responsibility and accountability. And I've been in men's ministry for many years, and that is what keeps men and communities together, is when you accept, affirm, and hold each other accountable to that, you can accomplish any mission that you set your mind towards.
And you do it through mass customization, not mass production.
It's personal.
Empower the individual. Personalized health care is what we're supporting.
Congresswoman Van Duyne, tell me, what are the representatives saying to each other behind closed doors? Go ahead. give us what the scoop is on healthcare right now and what you plan to be doing.
If you think about it, healthcare should be nonpartisan. And I think whenever we start coming up with these massive, comprehensive plans is when we start to lose people, because everybody will find a red flag that gives them an excuse to vote against. So where I have, look, I was mayor, I'm very pragmatic. Get things done, at least moving in the right direction. So does that mean just passing smaller bills that will help immediately? Is that increasing your health savings account limits? Is that allowing it to be portable, right? When I left my job working for the Trump administration under HUD to run for Congress, I didn't lose my homeowner's insurance, I didn't lose my car insurance, but I lost my health insurance. I ended up having to get a plan that me and both my kids had $6,000 deductibles. And to exactly your point, are you really covered at that point? It was the largest bill that I paid for a service I never got to use. And I think that's important that we're looking at those kind of solutions, but we all agree that there's things that we could do. Let's see if on the other side of the aisle that they're in agreement and they will actually pass these small bills that we're at least moving in the right direction that could help solve the problems and alleviate some of the pains that we're all feeling right now. We're optimistic that we'll be able to do that by coming up with solutions by 2022.
That's good. Chad?
I was just going to add, we all have anecdotal stories we can share about family members or friends that have lost their insurance due to Obamacare. I have a family member that was able to pay a successful small business owner. Unfortunately, her plan was no longer an option for her. She had to go on to Obamacare, and just the stigma affiliated with that, it was almost like the government was trying to condition us to get to that one-payer system, because not forcing the capital market and the open market to be able to get a plan that suits you. And it was a nightmare for her. And she had to wear that stigma for quite a while, but that's not the American way.
And I find it in most situations right now, my patients that have traditional insurance pay more out of their pocket every time they pull the card out of their pocket. Every time they use their insurance, they pay twice as much for a CAT scan, they pay twice as much for an MRI, and there's always somebody in the middle of that relationship telling them they can't have the service. So what are we ensuring if the insurance actually drives up the costs and limits your access to services? The health shares and services like that allow the doctors and patients to work directly to become partners instead of adversaries in a very broken system.
And I'm curious, how do your patients find out about what you have to offer?
Yeah, so if you want to find a practice like ours, you look up direct primary care. Direct primary care are the key words. If you want to find somebody, of course, health sharing ministries are something important. You can kind of talk a little bit about that. I'm playing host now.
I'm getting filibustered. Go ahead. No, but I think you were saying, yeah, how did you find out about what health sharing ministries were? Did you always know about
Well, a lot of the media, radio ads, et cetera, you hear all these things of Christians coming together and individuals coming together to share one another's burdens. It piqued my interest, and then going online and doing the more research, it just makes so much sense. And literally, my monthly costs were cut by 1/10.
Wow. Okay, before we go, I do have a really big question. When are the Cowboys going to be Super Bowl contenders again? Because, I grew up here, and I'm a SMU girl, and I'm, like, dying here. Come on, Chad.
This is my favorite time of year to be a Cowboy fan. Cowboy fans are full of optimism and hope, but then the season starts, and unfortunately, it goes all downhill after that. But this is the year for the Cowboys. Dak Prescott's there. We'll be there.
We're good to go. Dr. Gross, anything else?
Now, thank you all very much for having us. It's really been a pleasure.
Well, and I think right now you've gotten some great ideas, and we all know, and we have to ask ourselves exactly the question, what kind of America do we want to be in the next 10 years? What kind of America do we want our kids to grow up in? Because it really is all up to us. Thank you all so much for being with us today.